Now I'd like to introduce the discussant, Dr. Salvatore Zacchini, the chairman of the OECD Working Party on SME and Entrepreneurship. His resume and accomplishments are too numerous to announce here today. He needs no introduction, so I'll just leave it there and I'll say, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, I think we heard many interesting pieces of evidence and papers, and my temptation is to elaborate on this, but I thought that it would be better to try to reassemble all these different contributions around a few issues that have to be kept in mind when addressing, as we do in this session, the problem of policy making in support of SMEs. And here there is a premise that has to be done, and the premise is that we cannot lump together a number of elements that were presented, and I will be more specific. For instance, the group of SMEs is a very diverse group. If we talk of startups, we have a set of problems. If we talk of medium-sized enterprises, we have a slightly different set of problems. Same story with R&D and innovation. R&D and innovation are two separate elements that cannot be lumped together because they require different conditions, although they are contiguous to one to another. But having said so, the first issue that comes to the fore is why should startups and SMEs be supported? I don't know how this, okay. How do you move to the next? Okay. Next. And this question, of course, has to be answered because quite often we hear that policymakers have to support SMEs. And I think the starting point should be basically this slide that shows a basic truth, that is to say that R&D activity increases with the firm size. In other words, the smaller you are, the less R&D you do. Of course, in the case of innovation, you need less, let's say, investment, and you can also say that there are certain measurement biases because quite often innovation is not properly detected in statistics. It's hidden in the organization, and you know that there are different types of innovation. But still, we have to start from this basic point. And at this point, we have to consider that there are SME-specific obstacles, and these have to do with funding, lack of skills, inadequate management, insufficient market pressure from competitors, and this is very relevant when we hear that small businesses say that they don't have the time to do R&D, they just innovate. If they innovate, this means they operate in less competitive environments, and quite often small businesses operate in local markets. They don't have the chance to compete on a worldwide scale unless they operate in technology-driven sectors like ICT. Now, once we accept the idea for a number of factors I don't have the time to explain, then the next question is who should support SMEs in this endeavor? And the usual answer is government. We heard it just in a number of interventions this morning. But is that just the government that has to do this job? Well, I think that there are two other actors in this process, and this has to do with the large companies, foreign firms, and universities and research centers. Large companies resort to small firms to carry out certain research work or to tap certain skills or to pursue new ideas and new research avenues. And at the same time, universities and research centers benefit from sharing risk with risk of R&D with the small firms. So we have to say that the intervention of government has to be coupled with that of the private sector. But then the question is, what kind of support? Governments generally focused on the financial side of the support and on the supply side of research and technology. And this is a problem that was highlighted by Mr. Correa in his intervention when he stressed the importance of the so-called ecosystem enablers, the environment where innovation takes place. And right now, the majority of governments are aware of the fact that innovation and R&D takes place in a favorable environment because it's the result, the outcome of a continuous interaction between and among a large number of subjects such as firms, suppliers, customers, universities, research centers, and government institutions such as patent offices. Now, having said so, then the next issue is where the focus of intervention should be within this large context. And here there are a number of alternatives that governments have to consider. One is the fact that to the extent that you have a failure in the system, then you have to have a systemic solution. You cannot address a failure in a system with a piecemeal approach or a fragmented approach. You must have a systemic solution that addresses a number of factors at the same time. The second aspect has to do with the alternative between a vertical approach, most often a top-down approach, and an horizontal one, which means that aims at creating interconnections among different actors. Another alternative is, are you going to focus just on new knowledge creation or on both new knowledge creation and new knowledge diffusion? Quite often, small enterprises have no knowledge about advances. They don't have a network of information. They don't have an infrastructure to know that a technical solution or innovation on any innovation already exists that can help them sort out a problem. So governments have to focus on both sides, on the creation of new knowledge, like research, innovation, and diffusion of this. The conclusion of all I said is that the number of shortcomings have to be overcome by governments, and quite often these shortcomings are brushed under the carpet on the idea that just by throwing money to the problem, the solution will come out. Thank you very much.